So Doom Eternal is now out. It came out on the 20th of March 2020, and I've spent the last couple of days with it. I've spent a considerable amount of time with it, and I just wanted to give my early mid-game impressions of my experience and my time with it so far, really. Just in case you don't know what Doom Eternal is, it's a sequel to the soft reboot Doom 2016. It's simply called Doom, but the community seems to refer to it now as, the online community, as Doom 2016, which in itself was a revival of the classic, some say the original, perhaps, first-person shooter. And the 2016 game was much loved. It was praised for both capturing the spirit of the original as well as modernising it in interesting ways. I think it caught everyone off guard, if I'm honest. I think nobody had high hopes. We've had reboots and soft reboots and revivals of old franchises, which fail to capture the magic of the original, whereas Doom 2016 seems to be the exception to that rule. Regardless, we now have Doom Eternal 4 years down the line, and it's been a long time coming, really, and I think what it sets out to do is it sets out to be a better, bigger, more refined version of what came out 4 years ago, really. It doesn't look to divert away from the formula that was established in that game. It just looks to expand upon it and make it better. I think they've really, the developers here have really just taken a look at it and thought, what were the weaknesses of the first game, and just addressed them head on, really, to make something that is a far more balanced video game. So Doom Eternal opens with Earth under siege from Hell. You are the Doomslayer again, this space marine turned force of nature, who's the only thing that can stand against the forces of Hell, and you observe the Earth and the ravaged Earth from your Fortress of Doom, which is a floating castle in space. And the game basically opens with the Doomslayer trying to track down and kill 3 Hell Priests. And I'll be honest, the storyline it seems like it's quite dense. It doesn't directly follow on from the 2016 game, which ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. It feels almost like there should have been a game between then and now, and I expect that the game will fill me in on the details as it goes. Saying that, I'm about halfway through the game now, and it hasn't really done that. It feels like the lore has been really expanded upon this in this game, and one of the things that seemed to be much beloved about the first game was there was all this deep lore about hell and demons and factions and what was going on. And yet it was there if you wanted to delve into it, but the Doomslayer character just didn't give a shit about it. He was irreverent. He was just there to fight demons regardless of what else was going on. That doesn't seem to be the case in this game. It feels like the Doomslayer is a man on a mission. You meet certain characters in the game. You meet actual physical characters who talk and interact with you in cutscenes. It seems like he's far more behind a cause. There seems like there's multiple factions, not just the demonic factions anymore. There's a faction of knights who I remember being teased upon at the end of the first game in 2016, but they're very much a presence in this game, and it feels like the Doomslayer is somehow loosely affiliated with them, but not directly, and it's not yet explained, which is odd. But it feels like a kind of a fantasy novel where you get dropped into this world that is ongoing and fleshed out, and it's up to you to catch up as the story unfolds. But at its core, this is still very much Doomslayer doesn't like demons and is out to kill them, and it's set on Earth this time, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for a more diverse array of levels and artistic styles and art styles. And yeah, this ultimately is very much a Doom game. And with that said, I think really it's a case of the story is there and in far more abundance this time around if you are so inclined to engage with it. If you don't really care about it, then you can breeze past it. It's not thrown in your faces, all the cutscenes are skippable. But at the moment I am intrigued because there seems to be a lot of dense lore in place, but not a lot of it's explained, so I'm kind of waiting to see where exactly it goes with that. Now, I think what really makes Doom stand out as a particularly special franchise across these rebooted entries is its gameplay loop. There's nothing quite like it, really. It does away with modern conventions of shooting. There's no cover. You are encouraged or forced to constantly keep on the move. It makes for this incredibly aggressive style of play where you must kill or be killed. There's a real rhythm to the gameplay, moment to moment. It feels almost like a dance or a puzzle almost. There's almost like a heartbeat through the combat where one moment you will be on top and destroying demons left, right and centre, and then something else will spawn into the combat arena and take you by surprise, destroying your health pool down to dangerous levels, which all of a sudden puts you on the defensive where you've got to keep on the move to keep out of reach of the enemies that are chasing you down relentlessly, just looking for an opening to regain some health back or some armor back or some ammo back. And you get all these things through this kind of gameplay loop that's established. Ultimately, it's an expansion of the gameplay loop that was in 2016, but it's expanded massively here. You have to weaken enemies and then perform glory kills, which are really, really gruesome executions on enemies. And when you do that, and when you dispatch enemies like that, they explode with health power-ups all over, and you can recover in an instant. If you are running low on ammo, you must use your chainsaw to carve up enemies, and then they spew out ammo for all your different weapons types, and it gets you back in the fight, really. There's a new mechanic that you get a flame belt, which is essentially a shoulder-mounted flamethrower, and if you set enemies alight, every time they take damage while they're on fire, they'll bleed armor all over the place for you to recharge. And it's this kind of core loop that keeps you going. Enemies are incredibly dangerous. Even the lowest level of enemies can really, really screw you up in a matter of seconds. And it's this constant ebb and flow of your health, your armor, your ammo, and looping the three aspects into each other and making sure that you're executing the right enemies in the right way in order to keep yourself moving forward. And I mentioned before, I touched upon it, it's like a puzzle game really, and I'm playing on Ultra Violence, which is the second of top difficulty, at least available upon starting the game. And it's hard. The combat encounters feel like puzzles. You start to unpick them and you start to work out what the best techniques are. You see a particular demon come out halfway through the fight and you're like, right, he's going to cause me problems, so I need to save some grenades for him, or I need to save this ability for him. And it all flows incredibly well. And when you lay on the heavy metal, really, really heavy grinding soundtrack over the top of it, it's exciting and it's engaging and it constantly keeps you moving forward. And it's fantastic. In addition to the core gameplay loop, which is really just an expansion of what was in the last game, you also have additional bits of equipment and abilities at your disposal as well that are doled out across the early levels. You have now a ginormous wrist blade a la Predator that you can just carve enemies up with. It's more of a flavour thing that really plays into glory kills and things like that, but that looks really cool. You have your shoulder cannon where your flame belt is located, can also fire off grenades, so you now have a frag grenade cannon, and later on, well, it's about a quarter into the game, you seem to get a cryo grenade as well, which explodes in a cloud of icy liquid nitrogen or something like that, and it just freezes enemy into statues, giving you free reign to just pummel them and blast them away and bring them down before they can break free and continue to pursue you. There's a ton of stuff. There's the blood punch as well. I'm forgetting that as well. The blood punch is a melee attack that builds up over time, and when you melee an enemy, it sends out a massive shockwave. It kills the enemy almost instantly and sends a shockwave out to everybody around them. So there's all these little touches that you've got going around you. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on. Combat's constantly demanding. As I say, it's like a puzzle game, and I've died so many times, but it's never frustrating. It's a bit like, bringing it back in again, it's a bit like Dark Souls. It's punishing, but when you work out what you need to do, it's fair, and it's up to you. And to be honest, I'm relishing the challenge. I think if I was playing on an easier difficulty, or it was easier as a game, I might not be enjoying it as much, because it feels really rewarding when you do actually crack the code and figure out a fight and execute it perfectly. So in addition to the core combat, which is definitely the best part of Doom, there is also a much larger focus on platforming this time around. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword in my opinion. On the one hand, it breaks up the pacing of the game, it steadies it along, it makes it a lot more impactful. I like the quiet platforming moments between really, really intense combat encounters. One of the things about Doom 2016 is it got a bit samey as the game went on, and by the time it finished, I thought it was maybe a third too long. And granted, I'm not that far along in Doom Eternal. I am enjoying the pacing because of the platforming. It's fun for the most part. I know first-person platforming can sometimes be a little bit of a mixed bag in itself, but it's generally executed fairly well here, except for two parts in particular that come to mind. As I say, I'm probably about halfway through the game, maybe a little bit less, and I've had two instances where I was just like, fuck this game, because I just could not. It took me so long to get through these two particular bits in mind, and it was so fiddly, and I felt like I was fighting with the game. I felt like the game wasn't being fair. The platforming is as demanding as the combat, obviously, just in a different way. It really expects you to react quickly, have a clear idea where you're jumping to next, and sometimes the game is just not very good at telegraphing where you should go next. And that leads to moments of frustration, because ultimately it should be demons that are killing me, not small falls into lava pits you can't escape from. And yeah, there was definitely one instance, especially on the first of these two sections I'm talking about here, that I nearly did just kind of put the game down for a little bit and walk off and calm down. I didn't, because I eventually got through it, but you know, it did come close, and it's been a black spot on an otherwise really, really enjoyable time up until now. However, they really do go for the platforming aspects in this game. There's a double jump, there's an air dash, a double air dash, there's wall climbing, grappling between climbing points. So you can't accuse the developers of not giving this aspect of the game its care and attention. And it's not a bad thing, as I say, it paces the game very well. It allows you to have some really, really cool platforming set pieces with gorgeous backdrops. But it tries to be a little bit too difficult at times, a little bit too fiddly, and as I say, it is the poorest part of the game at times. But you know, they have invested in it. It's not a throwaway kind of idea. So it's a mixed bag, the platforming for me, unfortunately. So in addition to the core gameplay loop generally being really good, there is a ton of upgrades and progression in this game, an absolute ton. The system's all over the place, you're getting upgrades left, right and centre. It feels like you're always getting something new, especially in the early part of the game, when not only are you upgrading things, you are getting weapons and abilities thrown at you on a really nice learning curve. I mean, all the abilities like the ice grenade, the flame belch, they all get given to you kind of over the course of the first few levels. And at this stage I've got about 6 or 7 weapons that all do different things. Each weapon has got 2 modifications that you can equip, much like Doom 2016. For example, the combat shotgun that you get in the early, it's your signature weapon in this game. It has a grenade launcher and a full auto mod, and you can eventually unlock both and upgrade, swap between the two of them on the fly. Not only is there 2 mods per weapon, there are upgrades for each mod. There are 2 upgrades per weapon, and when you buy both upgrades per mod, you can then get a special challenge which unlocks a kind of special bonus ability as well. One example of this is the super shotgun, another Doom classic weapon. Now it comes equipped with a meat hook add-on, which is effectively a grappling hook. You fire at an enemy and it pulls you towards them, and you can blast them at close range and absolutely decimate them. If you buy both mods for the super shotgun, well, if you upgrade the mod for the super shotgun on both slots, and then complete the challenge, which is kill 50 enemies while using the meat hook to fly towards them, you unlock a flaming meat hook which sets them on fire and makes them leak ammo recharge pods, the ammo power-ups. So there's tons just on the weapon front. On top of that, you have things like suit upgrades, Praetor armor upgrades, which is a kind of dial that you can invest other points in to give you passive upgrades, like you can make yourself immune from explosive barrels, which again are another staple of Doom. You can have it so your frag grenade takes less time to recharge, and that's just a whole other layer as well. And there's also these crystal rune type things that you can get. I should differentiate. There's these crystal upgrades and also runes that you can get. These crystals give you permanent upgrades, and they generally are increased health, increased armor, increased ammo count, but the way they're organised is you get pairs of them, so you'll get like an ammo upgrade and a health upgrade, and if you buy both of the pair, it unlocks another bonus ability as well. And so they're spread across these 6 to 8 different upgrades that you can have, and it encourages you to spread what you're investing points in. You shouldn't just invest in health all the time, because if you do, you will not unlock these paired bonuses, because there is never one with 2 health bonuses, 2 health upgrades on them. So that's a really clever system as well. And there's these runes I mentioned as well. So runes are kind of slotable abilities. You get a choice of 9 of them that you unlock over time. Every time you find a rune in the game, it says which one do you want to unlock. So it gives you a choice. You can only equip 3 at a time, at least in the mode that I'm playing. And they are passive bonuses. They are things like glory kills animate quicker. You can do glory kills from further away. You've got more control in the air, which I've found very useful. It's a bit boring, but it's very, very useful on the platforming. And so that's another system really. There's there's just there's like 4 or 5 systems all laid on top of each other, and you're constantly getting things thrown at you in this. New weapons that all have specific purposes. There's just an absolute ton going on in this game in terms of progression and variety, and it's really impressive for a game that is essentially just about running around killing demons. It's impressive that they've managed to make it so engaging, to be honest, and I'm having a really good time with it, generally speaking, and I just like the way it all works together. It feels like a very complete package, a very well thought of package. In addition to the game generally playing fantastically for the most part, it also looks really good. I'm playing on a PlayStation 4 Pro, and it seems to run at a very steady 1080p, 60 frames a second, and it makes you really appreciate when people put the effort in, because it's a looker as well, this game. It looks fantastic. The weapons have all been given an overhaul. Your character's armor is different to how it was in the last game. The enemies look slightly refined. There's even like 100 times more enemies in this game. I'm exaggerating there, but there's a lot more variety in terms of the enemies now. There's like the base versions, upgraded versions, twists on them. One of the main kind of early to mid-game enemies of Doom 2016 was the Hell Knight, this big kind of 7-foot brutish demon that used to charge you and use its fists to pummel you and do ground pounds. And they're back in this game, and they're still as pesky as ever. But you've now got an upgraded version, which is these ones which are augmented with kind of mechanics and cybernetics, and they've got these giant flaming kind of blade gauntlets, and they can fire off kind of energy using them, and that's just one of them. There's also these other ones that are like snakes that are super dangerous, and they use kind of weapons that are very similar to Kratos from God of War, and I hate those. I can't remember quite what they're called, because all of these demons have got massive amount of lore, massive amount of detailing in codexes and things like that, but there's a ton, and they all look fantastic, and the game looks fantastic. One of the big things that kind of bogged me down in the back half of Doom 2016 was the fact that the vast majority of the game was either on Mars, in a factory, or in Hell, and there was a lot of overlap between the three of them. This game completely does away with that problem. It's set on Earth. It has a huge diverse range of biomes. You've got giant gothic castles, Antarctica, decimated cities. I've done a mission inside this living, like, it's called the Gore Nest. It's all tentacles and flesh, and it's infested this entire city, and it's all gooey and awful. Then every level is completely different and very interesting, and yeah, it definitely does away from one of those kind of complaints from Doom 2016. Really, it's an improvement in that area. I think overall, really, I'm having a blast with Doom Eternal. It runs very well, it plays very well. There's very little to dislike about it. It's challenging, but in a fair way. It keeps me coming back. I've played probably 6 or 7 hours of it over the last couple of days, and I'm about halfway, maybe less. So it's a long game for a game that is so intense. It's paced very well. I'm not getting burned out, which I did start to with Doom 2016. I like Doom 2016, but I'm not a mega fan. I didn't like it as much as a lot of other people did, but this game, it feels like a refinement of what they did 4 years ago, really, and I'm having a really good time with it. I don't know if I want to finish the game before I say whether it's like a true recommend, but if it carries on like this, it's going to be hard push not to. There's also a multiplayer mode called Battle Mode, which I have not even touched yet, but the game seems to really want to push it your way. It's really big on kind of online profile and things like that. So I'm assuming that I'll try that out as well and see what that's like. But overall, kind of my initial first few days with the game are very positive, and I'm looking forward to playing it more.